Hello and welcome to the BAME podcast, Together We Can. My illustrious guest today is the Honourable Daniel K. Winterfeldt, QC. Welcome, Daniel.
Great. Welcome, Ekanem. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. You're looking so cool. Thank you for joining us today. I just want to let people know a little bit more about you before you tell us some more about yourself too. You're the founder and chair of the Interlaw Diversity Forum and a partner in the financial industry group, Reed and Smith. And you have also formed another organization called Forum for US Securities Lawyers in London. That was back in 2006. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Great, thank you. So my name is Daniel Winterfeldt. I'm originally from the US. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. Three of my four grandparents were originally European. So my parents are both first-generation Americans and first generation to go to university. We're from a Jewish background. I grew up in Cincinnati. I went to university in St. Louis in Spain and ended up in law school in New York. Worked for 2 years on Wall Street in a Wall Street firm, and then moved to London in 2000. So I have a British passport, so I'm both American and British. And I've spent most of my career working in London. So I'm a capital markets lawyer. So I've been doing capital markets work. I started doing general corporate work and M&A work. A lot of it was private equity backed. And then I started focusing on capital markets exclusively in 2005. And that's what I've been focusing on since then.
Wonderful. What I'm really interested in today is that you successfully launched the Interlaw Diversity Forum. Tell us more about that and why you did that.
Great. Well, I've been, in addition to being Jewish, I've been openly gay my entire career. As I said, my parents are, first generation Americans, so immigration is also a really important topic for me. And when I arrived in London in 2000, and I was comparing that with New York, it was very, very different around equality for diversity and inclusion. Very different for women, very different for Black and ethnic minorities, very different for disabilities, religion. We've obviously evolved a lot in London and come a long way, but there's more work to do. And as a lawyer who was openly gay, I would often work in offices of 250, 300 people and be the only out person. And I felt quite isolated. So in 2008, when I became a partner at a law firm, I decided that was an opportunity to work on equality, not just for my firm, but for the entire legal sector. So I've been running for 2 years. You talked about the Forum for US Securities Lawyers. I knew how to bring people together in London. So that brings together people from lawyers, from law firms, bankers, the London Stock Exchange, intermediaries. I thought, I know how to bring people together to solve legal problems and commercial problems. Why not apply this DNA to solving diversity and inclusion issues and bringing people together from a wide range of organizations to work collectively to improve things.
Right, so you're very used to that sort of working in that collective manner. So you've almost answered the question that I'm going to ask you now, typical lawyer, and that is, why did you agree to be a BAME Health Collective ambassador? Because that's what you are for us here in London.
Yeah, well, I think that's why I was anticipating where we were heading, is that really when there's a problem or when there's an issue, I firmly believe in bringing people together and in bringing people together to create solutions. So for me, I started a race ethnicity network within the Interlaw Diversity Forum. So we started as LGBT+. 4 years ago, we launched a race ethnicity network. Just over 3.5 years ago, we had our first meeting. We've now grown that group from 240 to over 3,000. So a huge portion of the work I do within the Interlaw Diversity Forum is focused on BAME and race and ethnicity. And I know what it looks like in the workplace. I know the issues that are there. And so when Michaelene came forward and said, would you like to support our work? Would you like to consider supporting it? I jumped at the opportunity because I know that the issues within the BAME community are wider than just the workplace. They're a very important part of the issues the community faces. But when you look at the wider issues and the wider areas that need to be addressed, healthcare is critical. So the idea that I could support and lend my support to an initiative like this was really an honor for me to be able to do. And I think the more we can be of service to others and the more we can support others around achieving equality and well-being, that is, a privilege to be able to do that.
Right. I mean, but could you, from the experience that you've had over the years and having to bring people together, what do you think are the challenges of the BAME that the BAMEs face in the workplace? Because you just sort of, mentioned that in your answer before. Could you give us a little bit more detail?
Yeah, of course. So we did a research report that we published in 2012. So we did several reports leading up to that, looking at the legal sector. So speaking from the legal sector in the UK, in 2012, we surveyed over 2,000 members of the legal sector. And we asked about, we covered all strands of diversity and inclusion, plus social mobility. So we looked at race, ethnicity. And what that report showed us was that one group did the best within the workplace in law. And that group was straight, white, elite, educated men. And everybody else who differed from that norm, the more boxes you ticked with intersectionality, the more challenges you faced, which meant the less money you earned and the more barriers you encountered. Now, there was one difference for Black lawyers within those statistics, in that Black men actually earn less and face more barriers than Black women. But other than that, across the board with intersectionality, if you were a woman, if you were a woman of color, if you're a woman of color and LGBT+, all of those ticks meant you were earning less money and facing more barriers in our research. So we know that it's really important to bring people together to face those issues, because it's not a problem for one group, it's a problem for all of us. And equality is essential. The things that we looked at when we talk about those barriers are things like work allocation, their promotion and advancement, transparency and fairness of those processes. They are whether you feel like you're part of the social fabric of the firm, are you in the in-group or the out-group? Differences around work allocation, also mentoring and sponsorship. So we saw really different results for diverse people from everyone else. So it's really important to address those issues in the workplace and realize that just because we sit with people and we have an individual experience within our organization, that doesn't mean that everyone else who works with us has that experience. If you want to know what Black, Asian, minority, ethnic lawyers or anyone are experiencing in your workplace, the only way to find out is to ask them. And each of them will have a different story to tell, but you have to look and communicate with people to find out where those issues are. But we certainly know those issues then spill over into your mental health, your physical health, your well-being, and there are other barriers and obstacles that are much wider that are being faced as well by the BAME community.
Right. I mean, I'm so glad that you touched upon the mental health issues, because that's quite an important one now. And the BAME Health Collaborative is actually at the moment drafting a report on the mental health and well-being of the BAME staff. What do you think should be included or addressed in that report?
Well, look, I'm very excited about the BAME Health Collaborative addressing mental health. I think that's a huge issue. I myself have suffered from depression and anxiety and had treatment. It's something that's been manageable throughout my life, but it's been something that I have to kind of regulate and manage. I do think that it's really important that we look and address at mental health. There are definitely higher rates for different members of the different groups within the BAME community of mental health challenges that can then have knock-on effects. So I think it's really important to look at where are the obstacles and the barriers, why are there higher rates within the BAME community of mental health issues, and what can we do to remove those barriers and support people within using the BAME Health Collective as a vehicle to highlight where the injustices are, where the barriers are, and what we can do. I think especially depression among children is something that has been highlighted within the BAME community. And what I think is also really interesting looking at my work is the parallels with the LGBT+ community, because it's something that we have in common as a group. So obviously BAME, there's a lot of controversy or discussion around should we be using the BAME terminology. It's a very wide, very diverse umbrella, but so is LGBT+. If you think about it as well with disability, it's a huge umbrella. we do use these umbrella terms. They're important. But if you look at the LGBT plus community, you see higher rates of depression, higher rates of mental health issues. They're the highest for trans members of our community. So they're interesting analogies, and I think we can learn from focusing on it. But I would hope that a report or the work we do would be a path forward to both inform the healthcare industry about what they can be doing better, but also educate people out there about what opportunities and what is available to them in order to address these issues and create more openness. Because I think there's a lot of stigma around mental health in the UK, not just in the BAME community, but wider and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I think the wonderful thing that you said there is that there is a crossover between the LGBT and the BAME, because they kind of intersect in each other, because they belong to both parties, if you see what I mean. Now,
absolutely. Well, I think that intersectionality is really important, because people think about these groups as very different, but we have to remember inside BAME, you have women, you have LGBT plus, you have people with disabilities, and vice versa. Inside all the other umbrellas, you have all the other groups. We are all one. We are all united. We have far more in common than I think we have different.
Absolutely, you've said it. But you know, just moving on, because I can't go away from the COVID situation, and I need to ask them, what do you think? What should the BAME Health Collective key focus be in the light of the COVID-19?
Well, look, I think in the wake of COVID, you know, we've already seen for the BAME community, there's social and economic barriers in place already. If you look at unemployment, if you look at pay, if you look at qualifications and experience, if you look at rates of poverty, if you look at homelessness, we already know that all these issues pre-COVID-19 were higher for many members or groups within the BAME community. So I think it's really important that we are looking at and addressing how COVID-19 is having an impact. We've seen numbers. We know that there are higher rates of infections, for example, of the virus. But I think what's really important is that we work with the VHC and we work with others to understand why are these differences in place. And not only can we learn from what's happening now about better supporting BAME communities, but also for future healthcare issues and future trends, we need to make sure that this isn't the case in the future. And if there are things that are systemic, if there are things that are changeable, the virus itself is not discriminating, right? We know that the virus, we're all humans, we're all one race. There are other factors at play. And I think it's really important we figure out what those are for the short term to alleviate and provide support to the BAME community, but also figure out what long-term changes need to be put in place to ensure that if there's a repeat of something like this, that it doesn't play out the same way this has.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that we are going to be ready for it this time around if something like this should occur?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I mean, I think we'll be more prepared, because I think this was unimaginable to people. Even though you could look at the movies, you could look at the science, all the scientists say they knew this was coming. I don't think we all believed that. So I do think this is part of our consciousness. So I would like to think that we are learning lessons today, but I think we have a lot more lessons to learn. So I think there are learnings that are in place, but there's a lot more learnings that need to be done. So the BHC can work as one of those vehicles to find out what's going on, to dig deeper, to do studies. So I'm very excited about the work that's being done by the BHC and to be supporting it, to know that we will be providing that solution. We'll be doing that work.
Yeah. As an ambassador for this organization on an international front, because you're not just here in England and in the US, what made you actually join this organization, and what do you feel that you are going to bring to it over the years to come?
Well, I think, I'm in a position where now Interlaw is over 8,000 members and supporters from over 800 law firms, chambers, corporates, and financial institutions. So I think that I'm in a lucky position to have a far and wide reach among a lot of other organizations. So my network is a broad umbrella. And what I'm hoping I can do is, bring my credentials to the table as a diversity and inclusion expert, bring my expertise to the table of activism to support the work of the BHC, and be an ally. And when I started my work within the Interlaw Diversity Forum, the first 3 of my 4 patrons, 4 of them were women, and 3 of them were Black women. And all of them stepped forward as allies. Baroness Scotland, Helen Grant is an MP. I've had Sandy Okoro, as well as Dame Fiona Wolf. And all of those women stepped forward as allies to support the work I was doing. So I know that it's my responsibility as an ally, where I know there is a need and an ability to help and support others to do that. So when I was asked to do this by Michaelene, it was a huge honor. And I feel lucky and privileged, and I hope that I can, deliver and support on the amazing work that the BHC will be doing.
Okay, and how would you go about encouraging others to join this organization? How do you feel they can contribute?
Great. Well, I think what will be, for example, within the Interlaw Diversity Forum, over 3,000 of our 8,000 members are inside of our race ethnicity or BAME network. So I think the synergies and the ability to promote this work through the community, and I'd say about 80% of those people are BAME and about 20% are allies. So we have a huge core of professionals that are there. We are running programs for students. We just did a virtual internship for about 460 students 2 weeks ago. All of them were from socially disadvantaged or diverse backgrounds, and I'd say about 60 to 70% of them were BAME. So we're growing. Not only are we a network that's growing, but we're able to get to people at different levels within the community and then push out to them. So supporting the BHC, promoting the work, and also when reports come out or information comes out, helping to disseminate that information is something I would love to support and do. I think there's just a lot of opportunities for us to collaborate and work together, and for me to be supporting the BAME Health Collaborative's work.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for your contribution to the BAME collaborative, and for the way in which you are adding your voice to the to make the necessary changes on the international arena. I appreciate your time today. I know how busy you are. Thank you so much for inviting me. And again, I'm honored to be an ambassador and support this really important work. And it's been really great to meet with you today, Ekanem. And thank you so much for having this chat with me.